I'm very fortunate to be speaking with Kathleen Iceberg. And I'm in Denver, Colorado, and today is the pre-conference day. And I've been chatting and finding I have lots in common with Kathleen. We've been having such a lovely time talking, but I really wanted to ask you, Kathleen, can you tell me about the elementary school that you're teaching in right now?
All right, I'm teaching in an elementary school that is growing in Denver, which is quite unusual for the public schools in Denver this year. Most schools are losing kids and we are getting kids. So we're kind of busting at the seams with children from ECE, so that's early childhood, through 5th grade. The community I'm in is an upper middle class, mostly white neighborhood.
Excellent. And so your role in the school is primarily what?
I teach technology literacy. I teach teachers how to use technology, and I take care of all the technology.
Oh my goodness, that's a huge job. Enormous. So for you as a teacher in this context, what are the 3 biggest challenges?
I think that the 3 biggest challenges is getting teachers to move away from using technology as a tool similar to the chalkboard. So you don't see a lot of difference if somebody's just projecting and reading a slide and continuing to have their lecture. They're not really using the technology as a device that the children get their hands on and can communicate. It's not collaborative in that format. So that's a big challenge to let teachers release control. The next big challenge is to make sure that children do have devices in their hands and have the skills to be more than a passive user.
What do you mean by passive user?
Well, I think most of us are passive users of technology. I'm really good at watching Netflix. That's a passive use of it. And even writing a document is pretty passive. I'm thinking about being able to do a podcast like you're doing right now, writing the podcast, storyboarding. These are elements that I think they should learn in elementary school, not in middle school, because I think things should be way more sophisticated by the time you get to 6th, 7th grade. Using the technology to do really stronger research is really hard, though we promote it in elementary school, really hard for children because at that age they're not reading at the right levels. And it's very hard for them to find research appropriate for them at that age. So instead of pushing research, we need to start pushing some of the things they can do.
And when you're talking about can do you have in mind particular things?
Well, if you let kids research pictures, then those pictures lead to an interest of, well, why is the animal doing this? Why are these things happening? That almost is a better jumping off place than what we do is, because we're so used to teaching writing, that they're going to write the report and then we'll go in and get some pictures to add to the report. Whereas their interest is more aggressive when we go the other direction. So we've got to start thinking a little bit differently about how children are going to relate to the device and how we use it to communicate. Children love hearing themselves read. They always say, well, we'll get in reading groups or we'll read to each other, but don't make children read out loud, because if they read out loud, they could get embarrassed. So why not use these devices to engage children in listening to their own reading of their own writing, so they can record it and see how they look. I mean, they could also maybe have avatars. They should do more presentations with not bulletin boards or poster board, but more presentations using screens and also YouTube, and developing things that go further than just in the classroom.
Okay. And so the third biggest challenge for you?
The third biggest challenge for me is having enough time to bring those two things together, to bring the instructional elements that I think are important in what I call tech literacy, which I think of as a content area, bringing those together with the content areas that the teachers are so familiar with: social studies, reading, science, and math.
Excellent. Lovely. And you were saying before that you're hearing a lot of the same messages all the time, and in the technology and the conferencing event PD space. I must confess I also would agree with that. So, and what are you talking about there when you're saying you're hearing a lot of the same messages?
Well, let's see. I have been on the blended learning bandwagon and the project-based probably, well, I've been in education 8 years. So most of those 8 years. And it's just the same things being said over and over and over again. And maybe because we think we have to say it this many times to get teachers or somebody on board or make the transition. I'm not sure, because these are all things that should have been in place.
Right.
I'm almost frustrated with the idea that we have to say growth mindset. Seriously? What is? No, we don't want them to grow. What's the whole point of education is growth. So now I have to talk about it a lot because apparently that's not what I want to do. So I don't know. If you want kids to learn, we want them to put their hands on it. We want them to get dirty. We want them to make mistakes. We want them to experience things. So instead of having people tell you growth mindset and project-based and blended learning, maybe a conference should be the minute you walk in, it's like a virtual world. You're going through every door, and at every door you're trying you're doing something. And those rooms, like you can't escape the room until you figure it out. Maybe we need to be kind of like that. You can't get out of the maze until you figured it out. I just want to see more adults getting to learn the same way.
Yeah. And so being learners themselves. I mean, we're in the business of learning, and yet what I see and I feel frustration sometimes is that there's sometimes groups of teachers are not that I guess I work with actually don't see themselves as learners, and I feel inherently sad about that because I think it's quite a big roadblock.
Well, and it depends on what you're asking them to learn.
Exactly.
If you're asking them to learn curriculum, they know they have to learn the curriculum for the next year. Yes, they go to the PDs, and often they're too long and the teachers are bored, but they spend 3 to 5 days learning the new science curriculum or the new reading curriculum. But it's bigger than that. You know, it's way bigger than that. Learning is way bigger than that. Learning new curriculum doesn't teach you really anything beyond what you've already been learning all your life.
No, so it's the metacognitive aspect, I guess, that notion of learning how to learn. And I guess we want our children and young people in schools to be doing that, and so we need to be really embracing that ourselves.
And we can't be afraid of doing new things. So when we go to these professional developments, What we need to be doing is actually being pushed into new experiences, like learning to ride a motorcycle. Might be completely out of your comfort zone. Well, that's what we need to do. We need to push these groups of adults out of their comfort zones.
Indeed. Kathleen, thank you so much for your insight. It's wonderful to be in the US and speaking with American educators who are on the front foot, and I've really enjoyed our conversation. So thank you so much.
Well, it's been nice to meet you.